Hi, Ann Cornick from Paint and Porcelain here. I'm here to teach beginners how to China paint and also to encourage people who've been painting for a while to paint along with us as we do these different flowers. I might be able to angle this so that you can see a little better when I'm working, and I think that that might actually help, so we'll see. And if it does, great. I still will pick it up to show it to you, but I thought this way it's not going to go out of frame constantly when I'm working on it, which is something that I really want to make sure we avoid. Okay, so this is how my white roses turned out. And now I'm going to, I'm going to put in the background because as you know, most times when you're working on white roses, it's the background that actually defines the white roses. So I'm going to start with cleaning my brush. And I'm a blue person on this, so I'm going to be using my blue black, and actually I'm going to mix a little bit of royal violet in it, pansy purple, I'm sorry, in it. See, it's going to be hard for me to leave it here. And I've decided that this rose is on top. I just played with it all week, and that's how it turned out. And I'm going to go around, and I know it looks, before I do that, let's do the center. I think it'll help you see where the rose is a little better. I'm going to take a little bit of my mixing yellow and a little bit of, I like this orangey color, and I'm going to put it in the center of the rose. Okay, can you see what I did there? I don't know, maybe this is too far away. It might be better if I paint it up here where you can see. I'll put it back on here for now. Alrighty, so I'm going to take now my blue black and my pansy purple, and I'm just going to start going around the edge of the rose. I'm going to start on the side that has the shadow, and we all know that my light is coming from this way across the plate. And as you go around the rose, you're going to want to shape those leaves if you can. It's very difficult, I think, to see where the rose is unless you go through and kind of redefine it. So I'm using blue black, pretty heavy, and I'm just going around my rose. Let me show you what I've done so far. I'm going around in this case. Now if you're going to be putting purple flowers, you could put your purple in here like this. And what you'll find is, on your first fire, if you put the purple behind, you can even cut out almost like little forget-me-not flowers or something like that if you want those flowers there. Okay. And I'm going to go on up here, and I'm putting the blue in up here because there's a leaf in between. Can you see the leaf there? Yes. And the leaf, I'm going to go back and do with the green. Okay, now I'm changing to, I have a Copenhagen blue that I love, and I'm just going to change to that. It's kind of like a blue-black. It's just a lighter version of it. And then I'm going to put a little bit of that also here. Okay, and then I'm going to go through and start doing my leaves. So I have, I think you can see the strokes. I just am really trying not to have that light interfere, so, okay. I'm going to do this and this. Just around that. Then I'm going to turn my plate. That's the leaf. And I'm just going to go around that very edge of it to give it a nice leaf look. Here we go. This side has the shadow, so I'm going to pull more shadow there and pull a little more highlight up here. I think that looks a little better. And then I'm just going to go around. This is the end of the leaf. The leaf here, it starts down here at the bottom. And then it comes up underneath the top here. So I've just got it going into shadow. If you can see that, it's just disappearing into the shadow. And you might want to experiment with colors. Like right now I'm using kind of a blue-green because I think it might add something to this. And I'm working on my final leaf down here, which is kind of at the base of this petal. Oops, can you see? I'm sorry. It's harder to hold it up, but there we go. Okay. Now, I've got 3 more leaves up at the top, and I'm going to put a little bit of, oh, it's a little too dark. That's the other thing. If you've mixed your paints so they aren't too oily, you actually will probably get a darker paint. If you've been doing them too oily, you'll actually probably get paint that comes out a little darker for you if you're mixing it correctly. So I'm just putting the green in at the base of those, kind of like a shadow where it goes underneath my rose. And then I'm going to flip them, and I'm going to add a little color here to the very edge. Oh, trying to anyway. As I go around and finish the background, I'll be able to play with these leaves a little more, but that gives you an idea. So now let's turn it this way. So we put our center in, and I think I'm going to need to turn you this way a little, yeah. Put our center in, and then we put the dark behind it. And you can be dark because the only thing that's going to define your rose is that it's a white rose is the background pretty much. The other thing, I had a problem. I did play with this a little too much, and I think that my grays are a little dark on that rose, so it almost looks like a gray rose. And by going dark with the background, I think it also helps take away from that. Cleaning my brush. Okay, and now I'm just going to take a little bit of the blue, and I'm just going to go a little, no, I'm sorry. This is the side that's the shadow right over here. So I'm going to put a little bit of shadow over here. And a little bit of shadow down here. And a little bit of shadow, maybe, you see where I did it there? I'm sorry. Okay. And a little bit of shadow. I kind of like that. I think I'm going to do a little bit right here too. Okay, and then just the palest blue. I'm really trying not to overwhelm this rose so that it's every color but white. And I'm just trying to give it a little bit of color on the sides. Just a little bit of color all the way around. Okay, so that's what I've got so far. Oops. It's hard to hold it backwards, I'll tell you. And then the only other place that maybe needs a little is right underneath that lip where the upper rose kind of folds over. I'm just sort of sketching with the end of my brush. I'm not really using a stroke per se. It's just sort of let me show you what part of the brush. I'm using this little tip, just the tip, just this little tip, and just gently touching it, almost sketching to try to just add the color without overwhelming this rose, because this is a white rose. It is not a blue rose or a gray rose. So I really want to make sure that I don't overwhelm it. I want to make sure that I keep the color as much as possible. So now I want to take my Pico-Pay. You know, I like my Pico-Pay because it's a nice thin little eraser. And I'm just gonna, here, let me do this closely so you can see it. I'm just gonna go, you have to keep wiping it off as you go around. I'm going to go around the edges and just sort of define them. I don't want this quite so sharp, so I can go out into the background a little bit. And over here, I can do the same thing. And then up in here where I applied the little bit of blue, I'm just gonna, you see how I pulled that in? It's really hard on a white rose to see anything, I swear. It's the most difficult thing. And then of course I have to put my little tickies back in the middle up here. That's not really doing it. Let's go to the wedge. I'm going to exaggerate a little so you can see. Can you see? Now I have this brush. This is a very unusual brush. It's actually, let me show you the shape of it. It's actually this kind of a shape. I got this from Brigitte Porter. She used it for the types of, she does that old world type of painting. And what I like about it is, if you can see right here, I have to get really close for you. I have a little paint up in there that I want to get rid of. And this is a nice little detail brush to get in there and just get rid of the paint. Another thing you can do, but I wouldn't do a lot of it, is as you shape the edges, if you find that your rose really is too dark and really doesn't, I'm just going around now and just sort of shaping the edges. Oops, got a little there. If you're really finding that it's just not doing what you want it to do, you could add a little white. Like right here, I'll give you an example. Can you see right here? I want this, oops, sorry, this to go out a little more. I have a little white on my brush. I don't know that it's really going to help, but it might. And I might put a little white down in here, a little white here. I'm just using short, choppy strokes and a little white here. And I'm making short, choppy strokes so that I don't get rid of the background that I put in there. But I'm putting a little white on, very little, just so that I don't want white on that side. I want white on this side because this is the side the color is coming from. And I don't know if you can tell it made a difference, but I believe it did make a difference, and I like it. I also need a little bit right in here. There. Okay. So that brush I like because it actually kind of spreads out like this. It kind of looks like this when it spreads out. I like it for bird feathers too. So I'm just going to continue doing the same kind of thing all the way around. I'm just going to take my dark blue and a little bit of purple, and I'm just going to, then I would start on this rose and just go around it. It almost makes a black, so I want to get a little more blue in there. Oh, it got to be up higher, sorry. And then, as we always do, you're going to feather this out to the edges. And on this one again, I'm going to go back up and I'm going to define the top of it. So my yellow and a little bit of whatever that was, that amber or whatever, that yellow brown. And I'm just going to put it in there. I kind of like that. I think as soon as you do that, boom, you can see the rose. And here it looks like, I can see on the screen, it looks a little heavy here. So I'm just going to go back. And make it a little less, see now you don't see that line. A minute ago you saw a real definite line there. And I just went back and pulled it a little bit, very lightly. You know, we hold the end of the brush and just pull it, and that'll take care of it. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing all the way around that I did on this rose. And then, you know what? I have a little dust there. So let me show you what I would do. Apparently I got in the oil a little too much. So I would, if I see the dust once it's on the tile, and there's dust, I don't know if you can see it. If I flex it like that, there's dust right in through there. Can you see it a little bit? Maybe not. Anyway, I see it. I'm going to put a little bit of color on my brush. I clean my brush, I put a little oil on it, and put a little color on it, and I'm just going to lightly pull that dust off. And I may have to go back now and add the depth, but the dust is gone. And here, you can see right here, there's a little too much oil. So the same thing, I would lightly pull it out like this. And then I go back and add a little more oil, a little more if I need to. Okay, now the final thing on this plate is, what color are we going to make the rim? I've got two colors in mind. I need some assistance here. So the first color I had thought about was, believe it or not, a gray-green. This is what that would look like. Oh, it's kind of light to you. Let me see if I can make it a little darker. There, that's the gray-green. I tried blues, and I really didn't like the blues. I felt like the blues were too much the same. You'll see what I mean. Here's a blue. You see how that it just looks the same. So what's the point? It doesn't really set off the rim. So I'm not going to do the blue. I'm open to other suggestions on colors too. And the other thing I was going to try, I have a real pretty, it's a real pretty gray. It's called the silver gray. I guess it's very similar to the gray-green in a lot of ways, but it's a lot cooler of a color. So I'm going to paint this on, and then I will hold it up so you can really see it. Let me get a little more color in there. When you're trying to get more color, you kind of have to wiggle your brush in the paint, and it'll give you a little more color. Of course, this is a light color to begin with. Okay, so I've got two colors on there. Oh. There. The first color is the gray-green, which is here at the bottom, and the other is the gray, which I don't think you can see how pretty it is, but it's really pretty too. Any suggestions? I had even thought about doing maybe a purple, and I thought that's a bit much, but I think I kind of like the gray-green. I really do. And I think 2 coats of the gray-green would turn out pretty well. I know you can see it. It's pretty prominent. I put these little veins and these little lines in. I did it with a pen. And the reason I did it with a pen is because I intend to paint over it, like down here at the bottom. And when you paint over it, it almost disappears. See up in here, when you paint over it, it just kind of disappears. The other thing I think I'm going to do that I haven't done yet is I'm going to add a little green and I'm going to add a little brown to my leaves. So I'll show you up with the top leaf up here. Okay, and I'm just going to give it a little unusual color there. Oops. And I think on that one I need to pull it down more on this side and maybe take it off a little on this side. I got a little too much paint there. Yeah, there. Oh, the end tip is a little dark, so we'll even that out. Lightly, 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 lightly. There. So you can add brown. I think brown looks nice with this color. So that's the way I would do it. If I fire it and it fires out tremendously, then I might go back in and redo the darker sections only, just to make sure I get it. And there's the rose, so you can see the rose closely. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it looks good. It's white. And white roses are the most difficult roses to do because you're basically not painting them. You're trying to paint everything but them so that they stand out. So that should give you a little better idea. And on this one, the only other thing I see right now as I'm watching, I want to make it white up in here. So I'm using my heavier eraser to get a little more white up in the top, because it is a white rose that goes around the center, not a yellow rose. So I could tone that down a little. Thanks for joining me. I hope you liked what you saw, and if you did, please like this page and also subscribe to it. And in addition, you can check out any of the products or studies that you saw at paintnporcelain.com, or check the description box below for information.